Okay, back leg. I like to start with the back leg with the inside facing me. Anywhere I see this dry, where I've got the skin off of it, I'm going to trim that out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, put it under there, angle my knife up a little bit, kind of like I'm filleting a fish, and I'm going to fillet that dark out. And I'm going to start as thin as I can so I get as little waste as I can. See that dry trimmed off there?
There's jerky right there.
Huh? There you go.
There's jerky right there.
Very little seasoning, but and so I'll trim that until I find that I don't have the dark anymore. And that's about all I needed to do there. Then I'll come down here and I'll start, and I like to take off as big a layers of this connective tissue as I can in kind of little sheets. So I'll take my knife, I'll pick up on it kind of like skinning the deer. I'll pick up on that and take the tip of my knife and I'll just follow this along the leg. Now the reason I like to take that off in sheets as I can, if there was hair there, the hair's in there now. So again, that's another way to kind of take care of the hair situation. I'm looking for hair. Anytime I see hair, I'm gonna use a rag to get them off my fingers. And I'm gonna turn this over where I started, where I left off here. I'm gonna pick up that piece of connective tissue. On a deer, the heaviest fat's going to lay on the top of this outside of the leg, and it's not connective tissue. There's not a seam between that fat and the muscle. It's actually attached straight to the muscle. So I've got to basically flay that off. And what I do again is take the tip of my knife and kind of lift up on it, and I kind of follow it through there as much as I can. I try to stay right against the muscle and take as little meat as I can with the fat. I'm going to follow it right down the top of the back of the leg. Now, Jonathan's method of taking the silver skin off doesn't work that well with this because it'll cut right through the fat. There's no covering there. Take that fat off, I come back, little sections that I didn't get, I put the tip of the knife under there. This heavy stuff here, that's the fat. You'll get to know the difference between the fat and the silver skin, okay? This silver skin is not going to impart a gamey flavor. So if I'm going to roast a piece of that silver skin in, I don't have to be quite as meticulous about taking that off. But this heavy, white, that's fat. I want every bit of that off, okay? So for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to start. Once I get it to this point, I'm going to start taking the muscles apart. And what I do is I like to work going kind of on the back side of the knee joint here, and I start taking the muscles apart right there. The first muscle is kind of out the top piece, and it's one of the flats. And if I take my knife and I just kind of lift the pressure on it, and I use the tip of my knife just to follow the little seam, kind of like skinning it again. And I lift up on it, and I just keep touching it with my knife. It'll take this muscle right out of here. And you'll get to know after a while how this muscle is connected to the bone, you know, where you need to take the little turns. If you kind of keep folding it back, okay, it takes that first flat muscle out. I'm going to clean all this up as I go. I'm going to clean the silver skin off because a flat muscle to me is a steak muscle. Okay? They make great steak cuts. And I always want to cut the steak pieces across the blade. Okay? That's a flat. Next I see this connective tissue and veins. I'll come in here, I'll take a tip of my knife and I'll clean all this out. There's actually some limp tissue here. If this animal had an injury or something, you might see some discoloration here. But getting that limp tissue out of there, all in one piece is going to help with taking any kind of that infection out. What happens if I get in here and I see a discoloration, a green area or an injury or something, I want to trim that. And I like to go at least a ½ inch of trim, okay? Beyond it, outside the area of that. Next muscle, if I just stay right in the direction that I'm going, is a little small, long muscle that lays right at the top. Now this is what I call the cheater muscle. What'd you do with my... Oh, the okay. This is the cheater muscle, and I'll tell you the little story about cheating. And you can see if you ever grew up with me, butchering with me, I ended up with your loins one way or another. Either field dressing or in the butcher room. But you thought you got them from me in the butcher room, and I'll show you why. This is what you got, this is what I got. I marked yours tenderloin, and when you came to my house to eat tenderloin, you tell me, mine's never as tender as yours. There was a reason for that.
That's how he treats his friends.
I only have 2 left. So that muscle again is a flat muscle, makes great jerky, steak, things like that, makes good roast. The next muscle I come to is the calf muscle. I'll just disconnect it behind the knee again and take my knife and follow the seams and take it out of there. Again, all this surface stuff's going to be cleaned off. You'll notice this is one layer of connective tissue rolled around another layer, rolled around another layer. These round muscles that look like your fist or your bicep are strength muscles. They have connective tissue throughout the entire muscle. I grind these. These are where all my ground comes from. Or I roast them, because that's going to melt away. If I try to steak these and chase them through, all I'm going to be left is jerky-sized pieces. And I'm going to spend hours doing that. And your people get tedious and tired saying, man, I cleaned that and cleaned that and cleaned that. I don't think it's worth the time. It makes wonderful ground, but I'm going to clean the fat and this kind of stuff that's coming off before I grind it. Okay, the next muscle lays here on the top of the leg. It's got a little point that sticks around the ball joint here. And what I do here is I simply come into the hip structure and I take my knife and I actually run it along the bone. And again, this little flexible blade helps me stay on the bone. I'm just looking for those little seams of how that muscle was in there and put together. I simply take it out, follow that seam, and take the muscles out as they come. Again, a flat muscle can be cleaned up for steak or roast. I'm going to put my steak cuts over here and my roast cuts over there. All right, now I've gotten to the point where I see a round and a flat here. These are both connected to the bone, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and cut where the kneecap is. I'm going to cut across that kneecap here. I'm going to run my knife right down the bone until I get up to the ball joint, and I'm going to just score around the ball joint. And I'm actually letting that knife bend along the bone. And I'll pick it up here in a minute and show you kind of what I've done. I do the same thing on the other side here. So you can see I'm just run my knife along the bone there. I'm going to turn this over, come along the bone that I actually cut through, the pelvic bone, take my knife and trim along that bone, and I'd come along this seam here, and this flat muscle here will just come right out. That's all it's held in by. This is the biggest steak cut you've got in the back leg. If you want big grill steaks that are ½ an inch thick, something like that, clean this up, leave it whole, and slice your big grill steaks. This is the biggest steaks you're going to have without butterflying or doing something else. So if you kind of want that specialty grill steak, it's a little bigger on the grill, this is where you want to get those. Okay. The next one, I come to the inside of the leg here and just score along the bone a couple times, and it should remove that round. Okay, there's the round. A little bit of fat on each end is what I'm going to clean up. clean up the surface. I'm not going to chase that silver skin through this whole thing because there's hundreds and hundreds of little silver skin mussels that lay in this round. Roast and grind is what I do with the big round. That's what we got in our roaster over there. The last part is I got the bone exposed here. I'm going to take my knife again and I'm going to score along the bone on each side, top and the bottom. And I'm just going to keep turning this piece, taking the tip of my knife and following the structure around the bone structure. And I'm going to pull the bottom shanks right off the bone here. Okay. Now, bottom of the legs, I grind them always. Well, I still take off this head. If I can get a hold of it like this, I want to take it off. So I would clean all this surface off of here.